Thank you to everyone who came out this morning, and thanks to all of the folks who are here to answer questions. I think you'll find that there's a good array of folks who will be able to answer just about any question that you have. I want to go over, I'm Mike Thompson, and I want to go over a little bit of the format this morning for you. First of all, we're going to work off the agenda, the goldenrod colored paper that you have. There's index cards that will be passed out. There'll be staff walking through the gym with index cards to give to you. And if you have a question, write it on the index card, and then staff will collect it. And the questions will be asked and answered off of those index cards. It's much easier to do it that way, and we'll have a record of all of the questions. As I said, there's a ton of staff members here from the county of Sonoma, the city of Santa Rosa, FEMA, Army Corps, OES, and they're all here to answer questions that you brought with you today. And there's also representatives from the Department of Insurance who are here, and I know there's probably a lot of insurance questions, so they're ready to meet with you at the conclusion of this meeting. A number of us are going to just make very brief remarks about what's going on in our jurisdiction of disaster recovery, and then we're going to get to the questions. I'm here with my colleague Jared Huffman. We represent the area, we represent you in Congress. I'm going to just make a brief remark, and I apologize, but I'm going to leave. I have a tax seminar that I have to do in another part of the area, but I did want to come by and let you know that we're here, we're working, we're with you, we'll do everything that we can. And I wanted to give you just a brief update on the disaster supplemental bill. That was the emergency legislation to fund all of the aforementioned agencies who are working so hard to get us back to where we need to be. You probably read or heard that it was an $81 billion bill, and this was money that will be appropriated for disasters across the country. So this is Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Florida, Texas, all the hurricane stuff, and our area that suffered through the fire area, as well as now Southern California and their fire area. Our share of that to date is about $4.4 billion. And that bill passed the House and is now over in the Senate waiting for them to take action on it. There are a number of things going on in Washington right now, as I'm sure you know, that are somewhat of a distraction, and to say the least. And this bill is just one of the many things that's in the debate wheel that's going on. I'm confident that it'll be passed. I don't think it's the last emergency appropriation that we're going to need this year, and I suspect that we're going to need even more money here, and there'll be subsequent bills that will be brought up as it's needed. I also want to clarify. I know that when the tax bill was passed out of the House, there was a provision that I think a lot of people were concerned about. I heard from a lot of you. I was very concerned about it, as was Congressman Huffman. When the Republicans wrote the bill, they took out the ability for fire victims to claim casualty losses in their taxes. It was particularly disturbing because the people that wrote the bill, the chairman of the committee, is from Texas that just went through the hurricane problem, and they grandfathered in their constituents in Texas. And it was a real slap in the face, and we were very, very vocal about it, and we fought it hard. And when the final bill came back, although the bill wasn't much better, it did take care of part of our concern. So going forward, any casualty losses can be written off, provided it's a federally declared disaster. which would be good for a situation such as ours, but it's bad if there's, if 20 houses burn or 20 houses get flooded. That's not a federal disaster, and folks in a situation like that would not be able to take advantage of that. But we can hopefully fix that as we try and fix other parts of this tax bill. But the fight right now is in the Senate, and please contact your senators, tell them how important it is that this money go forward. The good news is that FEMA has enough money now to continue to do the work they're doing, but at some point we're going to run short, and this disaster relief supplemental needs to be done. So thank you all very much for being here. Thanks to all the folks who are going to be helping, and I know there'll be a lot of good information. I'm going to turn it over to Jared.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thank you, Congressman Thompson. So I'm Congressman Jared Huffman. Together with Mike Thompson, we represent Sonoma County, and I also represent Mendocino County, where many people have been impacted by the terrible fires as well. As Mike Thompson just told you, we want to make sure you know that your federal representatives are 100% committed to making sure that that federal disaster funding continues to flow. We will do that, and we're in it for the long haul, whatever it takes. But maybe a little further back in the less high-profile news is an awful lot of other work that we're engaged in, and we want to make sure you know that as well. Every week, every day, our staffs locally are engaged and working shoulder to shoulder with our colleagues in the state legislature, with county government, with city officials and community leaders to make sure that this difficult process of recovery and rebuilding is moving forward. When we gathered in this gym, literally as the flames were still burning and the evacuation orders were still in place, many of us told you that this was going to be a very long haul. And I think today's gathering is very important to show that we're going to keep that promise of staying with you all the way through. That is our commitment. Just because the flames are out and the evacuations are over doesn't mean we don't have an awful lot of difficult work to do. We want to make sure you know that your representatives at every level of government are going to be with you every step of that way. So thank you to Senator McGuire and others for pulling this important meeting together. We hope that we answer a lot of questions that you may have, and of course the listening side of this is also important, that we hear from you how things are going and how we can do the best possible job of representing you. With that, I'm going to hand off to one of our great partners at the state level, Senator Bill Dodd.
Thank you very much, Jared. I'm not going to be long because you came here to listen to people that are going to help more in this recovery. I did want to mention, though, that this, if you got people at home, this is being live streamed by the California State Senate, the State of California, City of Sonoma, and the County of Sonoma. I think it's, for those of you that are in the Sonoma Valley, my office is organizing a town hall there the latter part of this month. So that will be coming out for those people in the Sonoma Valley that were impacted by these fires. I do want to let you know that, in Sacramento, first of all, I'm the state senator in the southern half of Sonoma County, and I share that with Senator Mike McGuire. And we have been in Sacramento, and it's been absolutely amazing. Your fire chief, your city administrators, your county people have been in our offices over the last 2 or 3 weeks working on details to help with recovery. I also want to mention, because I just don't think people really realize the impact that Cal OES, who you'll hear from tonight, and FEMA have made in this progress that's being made. These organizations are operating at the top levels. I'm so impressed. I'm so appreciative, because we could not do this without them. I do want to also thank my colleagues who have been working so hard on this with us. And at this time, I would like to introduce the other state senator from Sonoma County, Senator Mike McGuire. Thank you very much.
Good morning. want to just take a quick moment to say thank you all for coming together. This is still an incredibly emotional time for, I think, all of us in this room. And being a third-generation Sonoma County resident, I have never seen this community come together like we have since October 8th. And what I will say is that we have a lot of work ahead, but together we are making incredible progress. Some quick updates, and one I recognize, Senator Dodd, Assemblymember Wood, and McGuire Curry, along with Mr. Huffman and Mr. Gore and Mr. Corsi, we were able to move forward in securing almost $24 million to be able to backfill property taxes for the County of Sonoma, our local fire departments, County of Mendocino and Lake and Napa County, and that has been so important to make sure we have continuous services here in the years to come. I think the other really big thank you I'd like to be able to make here today is to the California Office of Emergency Services. We had an unfortunate incident where a large firm protested a contract here on Monday that would have halted debris removal in our 4 counties. And by an innovative workaround by the Director of Office of Emergency Services, who's going to speak to us in just a bit, debris removal will continue, and we have a brand new team coming on board and starting work this morning to continue moving forward on debris removal in our communities. I just want to say thank you so much. My last item will be a promise. We promise that we are here for you now. We promise that we're going to be here for you in the months to come, and we will be here for you when we rebuild this community. And it is without further ado, I'd like to be able to introduce a fantastic colleague and a wonderful advocate for the North Bay, both Assemblymember Wood and Assemblywoman McGuire Curry.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be extremely brief. You want to hear from them, not so much from us at this point. But you will never see a more unified group of folks working together, whether it's the state, your legislators here. We are here for you absolutely through this crisis and through the rebuild. There have been so many stakeholder meetings as recently as this week, having members from all the communities, all the counties together in Sacramento with us, and this will continue until we get this job done for everyone here in Sonoma County so we can recover. So thank you so much for being here. We look forward to the information, and I got to say, our state agencies have been really, really amazing. We have never seen anything like this, and they're going to be here for us as well. And specifically want to call out Mark Gilarducci with the OES and his team, and Bob Fenton with FEMA. Amazing, amazing work. So thank you so much, and I'll turn this over to Cecilia.
I too want to thank all of you for attending today. It's amazing all the work that we're doing in the Capitol, trying to make sure that we get this taken care of and do it quickly for you. Again, my hat goes off to everybody that's come to the table. Again, Mark, thank you so much for what you've done. Can you imagine being in his role right now and dealing with the fires as well in Southern California in a mudslide? So we have to take off our hat to his entire department as well as FEMA. So make sure, let's give him a round of applause for what he's doing. So I want to guarantee you that not only those of us that are sitting here, but we all have field representatives that are answering your questions every single day, and we try to get back to you as promptly as possible. So if there's some questions that arise today that we might be able to help directly, you can call our offices and our field offices, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you for attending today, and let's get this done.
At this point, I'd like to bring up Sonoma County Supervisor James Gore and Santa Rosa Mayor Chris Corsi.
I'd like to ask my colleague Shirley Zane to come on up too, and Cheryl Bratton from the county, and maybe Chris, you can come on right afterwards if that's okay. My name's James Gore, incoming chair of the Board of Supervisors. Shirley Zane was the chair last year, and I want to thank her for her leadership in getting us through a tough time. Cheryl Bratton, our county administrator, basically the CEO of the county in terms of what we need to do operationally to make sure we deliver. There are two things that guide me and our board and Shirley and I and everybody, and that's number one is making sure that we don't fail you. Why? Because at this point, you didn't have any choice to get evacuated from your house or not. to receive an Amber Alert or not, to get to where you went that night, to get to a safe place for the coming weeks, the coming months, or even now, how your insurance company is dealing with you. You finally have a say in what happens going forward. That fire did not make you a victim. If we fail you in this world, that's what would be victimizing. So what we're doing right now is the Board of Supervisors jointly, and I'll let the City of Santa Rosa speak for themselves, is that from now through the mid-February, we're going to be having all of our board meetings focused on our recovery and our resilience plan. Recovery is how we get back to basic level of where we were. Resiliency is how we come out of this stronger. And when I say that, we're talking about natural disaster preparedness, making sure our communities are safe and prepared and resilient to what's coming on, and not platitudes. Things like, how do we get vegetation management this year up into the hills so that we don't have another fire come next year for the areas where the fuel loading still exists that didn't burn this round. How we make sure that the Office of Emergency Services at the County of Sonoma is prepared to do everything in its power to get out to you the word and the messages you need and the other constituents need in this area. This is our number one focus. You're going to be hearing a little bit later today about permitting and other things. I want to assure you that our goal is that you don't have to spend a single extra dollar outside of what potentially staff time would be to actually execute things like your plan checks and your permits. So we are negotiating with private providers. We are negotiating internally. I see some people laughing, and I respect that because you're wondering if we're going to deliver for you. And that's actually my challenge, is that I do want to look at that, and I want you to, instead of scoffing when I say we're here for you, is for you to look at us 6 months from now and say, they didn't just do government as usual. They did what was needed to benefit me. So I take that as constructive criticism. We're going to have board meetings on the 29th to cover our housing and our permitting. We'd love for you to join us. That's going to be a special meeting. We're going to continue throughout the month of February to build that recovery and resilience plan. If we do not hear from you, we can't act on your concerns, even if that's frustrations. I want to follow up by just saying I see two friends in the audience, Bob and Shirley. What, 50 plus years in your home? I honor that. Shirley, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just I wanted to say that, you know, one of the things absent on this agenda is about the mental health services. Our community is grieving. We've had this horrible, catastrophic fire and disaster, and there's also long-term effects of trauma, and it manifests itself not only in emotional ways but physical ways too. So please don't hesitate to reach out for yourselves and maybe for loved ones too. It's a really tough time. We get lots of calls at my office. Feel free to call the 3rd District office anytime. We will provide resources and advocacy for you. And just real quick, the 24-hour hotline for the mental health services is 576-8181. 576-8181. You can find a lot of different lines for mental health services on the Sonoma County Recovers.org page as well. Take good care of yourself. We care so much about you, and we know how difficult this is right now. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Corsi. I'm the mayor of Santa Rosa. You know, it's been 3 months and 3 days since we had the first post-fire town hall meeting in this gym. I was wondering how many people were going to turn out on a cold January Saturday morning, and it really heartens me to see hundreds of people here with us. And what I want to tell you is that we are here with you as well, and that's the only way we're going to have a success in this recovery, is if we're in it together. So I want to just reiterate what's been said a couple of times up here. From the federal level to the state to the county to the city, we are working together on a daily basis to try and make this process as smooth as we can for you. Today we've got a number of subject matter experts who are going to follow me. Thankfully, the political speeches are going to end in just a second here. But we want to listen to your concerns, we want to answer your questions, and we want to smooth the way for you. Now, that doesn't mean that we're always going to be able to solve your concerns, and it doesn't mean that we're going to have answers necessarily right away for your questions. We're going to find those answers. We're going to work as hard as we can to make things smoother for you. But we need to keep working together, and I'm pledging to you right now that all of us are here for you in the long haul. We're going to work together. We're all going to work together on both sides of this microphone. So one more thing, if your questions aren't answered in the big room here today, there are resources in the hallway. All of these folks, most of these folks will stay here and answer questions one-on-one afterwards. So don't leave here feeling frustrated that your question didn't get answered. Make sure you ask it. At this point, I'm going to introduce the Director of the California Office of Emergency Services, Mark Ghilarducci, and FEMA's Regional Administrator, Robert Fenton.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And let's start off with this. Sonoma strong, right? All of you. You know, the last 4 months in California have been literally an unprecedented time. We've had, starting in the October fires, over the last 4 months, a number of catastrophic events that have plagued the state, from Mendocino to San Diego. In all, in 4 short months, we have lost over 11,000 homes and businesses, and unfortunately, more than 65 fatalities. It has really been an incredible impact and effort, and the way we have all continued to work through these challenges has been, as we do here, together, as a community, as a whole of community, local, state, federal, non-governmental, nonprofit, and all of you working through these challenges as we move forward. I think I remember saying to you all when we first met here in this gymnasium 3 months ago that this was going to be a marathon, not a sprint. That there were going to be hard days, but that we would get through them. And we continue to work with that objective in mind. The big thing here, of course, has been getting the debris cleared. And as you may have heard, this effort is really the largest debris clearance operation that we've seen in California since the 1906 earthquake. It is a very complicated debris removal operation, encompassing many kinds of terrain and areas, facing weather conditions and other kinds of issues. And our challenge initially was we had 8,900 structures in all of the counties that were impacted by the fires. As you know, Sonoma obviously being the biggest chunk, but we had counties throughout Northern California that were in the same place as Sonoma was that we needed to get cleared on. And so I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it's moving fast enough, but I wanted to put a little bit into some perspective for you, because it's interesting to know about how you measure something like moving the biggest debris operation in the state's history, modern history. So after the 2015 Butte fire in Calaveras County, 2015, we had 800 lots that needed to be cleared. It took us 5 months, terrain, et cetera. In 2015 as well, during the Valley Fire in Lake County, we had 1,100 lots, and that took us a little over 3 months to be able to get 1,300 lots. Since October and fire started, and really we started here actually with debris operations beginning in mid-November to now, which is roughly about 2.5 months, we've cleared well over 1,800 lots in Sonoma County. And that's, thank you. That's resulted in more than 1 million tons of debris being removed and getting those lots cleared. Now, the metrics that we put in place for completion, I think you remember me saying that we were shooting for early January. And, you know, the reality is that parts of it will be done by early January. Coffee Park is expected to be completed within the next 2 weeks. Okay. And as we move forward, we remain on the metric to be able to get the remainder of Sonoma done in by the end of February, and maybe a few outlying in early March. Senator McGuire mentioned that you may have heard about these bid protests. There's a lot of things that come up in the media. I want to be clear with you that the challenges that we deal with sometimes with contractors in these kinds of situations, really what and I know it's hard sometimes, it's sort of part of something of this magnitude that we need this kind of these kind of big debris contractors. And if you understand that we also are doing debris operations in Ventura, in San Diego, and now as we are actively involved in heavy search and rescue operations in Santa Barbara, a massive debris operation there as well to clear 20-foot walls of mud and debris that came down out of those mountains following the Thomas Fire. That there's you know only so many resources that go around. But we were concerned, as I'm sure you were, that the protest would have delayed the ability to meet the metrics we put in place. So that wasn't going to work for us. And working with our great partners at FEMA, and I just want to publicly recognize one of the best partners I've ever had the opportunity to work with at FEMA, Administrator Fenton. He has your back. He has our back. He clearly is engaged. And he's a get the yes kind of guy to make sure that we are all working on this as one team, one fight in moving this forward. We set an agreement yesterday, a pending agreement with a company based out of Burlingame called Environmental Chemical Corporation's ECC to undertake the continued cleanup operations so that there would be no break in the effort to continue to remove the debris and move forward. I want the bureaucratic protest issues to be transparent to you. What I want for you to know is that our intent is to get your lots cleared, and that is what we're going to continue to do. So with that, I think the Corps of Engineers will speak a little bit, but they have put up posters out in the front. You can kind of see where debris operations have been completed, where they're going to be completed. We're continuing to refine this so that, you know, I've asked them, Bob and I sat and worked with the Corps of Engineers who have had a heavy lift, there's no question, to be able to coordinate this, to develop a timeline that is helpful, so that you can get a sense of when your part of the community, your neighborhood, will be cleared or is expected to be cleared. And you know, getting through all these other challenges, I think we're in a good place to be able to do that. And by today, we will have that information for you before you leave. So with that, I'll turn it over to my great partner Bob Fenton, and just want to end with saying thank you to all of you for your patience and your understanding. We will continue to be here with you, and we will make sure that as these things pop up, we'll address them in local, state, federal, whole of community approach. Thank you very much.
Well, let me first start off by saying thank you, and also let me thank all the local officials here today, your congressional representatives that are here today. It's been, they've been a great team and have had your backs all the way through this. As Mark said, I'm the regional administrator for FEMA Region 9. Our office is in the Bay Area. Many of our staff come from Sonoma and the outlying Bay Area, Napa, East Bay. So we had staff that have friends that have lost friends that have lost homes. So we feel very connected and want to make sure that we give you guys 110% of our effort from our office during this event, and we'll continue to do that. In fact, my own grandma lives in Sonoma and had to evacuate during this event. So while we'll probably never truly understand each of your needs and losses, our hearts and condolences are there with you, and you'll continue to get effort from our office. I think there's 3 principles that we've tried to undertake in doing this, and Mark talked about them, and the speakers before me talked about them. But the unity of effort is critical. How do we make sure that we collectively, all the different federal agencies that are here, state agencies, local agencies, continue to work together with you toward the common goals that meet your needs. Whole community, not only government, but you as individuals, private sector, nonprofits need to be part of the solution, and then understand that all events are local. We're here to support you, and they'll end local. And so my job is to fully utilize my authorities to help respond to this event and recover to this event. Very early on, as we got the declaration from the president in October, one of the things that he's done is he's made 100% of the cost for the immediate firefighting eligible for federal reimbursement. So essentially the federal government is paying for the majority of the firefighting costs. Mark's talked about the debris operation here, which, being in FEMA for 21 years now and being through 9/11 and Katrina in Mississippi and a whole host of other hurricanes and floods and events, this is probably one of the most complex debris removal operations that I've been a part of. As I look right now, and this has been an unprecedented not only year for California, but for our nation with what's happened in Puerto Rico, Texas, and Florida, just when you look at what we're doing here in the amount of debris generated, it's going to be the cost to move it and to deal with it, and the contaminants that are there, and the asbestos and all those kind of things, is probably about 3 times to 4 times the cost of any other event happening right now in the United States, just to give you an idea of the complexity and the size of this event. And the fact that we've removed already 50% in less than 60 days, and we'll hopefully have the majority of it done in less than the next 60 days. So we look forward to continue to work on this. I'm going to turn it over to the Corps of Engineers to give you their perspective in a little bit more detail, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out that another big partner that's been here to help us with the debris removal is not only the Corps of Engineers, but US EPA, who's done all the household hazardous waste and completed removal of all the lots out there of household hazardous waste, and now helping us with specific issues on lots with that may have other contaminants, asbestos, and those kind of things. So great partnership here from the federal government, and we'll continue to make sure that we provide you the support in an expeditious manner. So let me turn. I can't hear your question, but let me turn it over to the Corps of Engineers, and if you put your question on a card, we'll get it, go ahead and
Let me just say. So thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob. So 2 things. For questions that you may have specifically about debris removal or specific properties, they can be asked in the lobby right outside the gym, right after the meeting. The Corps of Engineers will have a number of personnel there to be able to specifically talk about your area and give you some information. In addition, I wanted to recognize the Deputy Insurance Commissioner. I know there's been a number of questions about insurance. Deputy Insurance Commissioner Joe Larcher's here. Joe, can you stand up? Where are you? There you are. So he's right over here, and he'll be here this afternoon as well for answering some questions. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our partner, Colonel McFadden from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And first of all, thank you. I am honored to be standing in front of you here today as the commander of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers debris removal operations up here. I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be right now than assisting the community and returning to normalcy as quickly as possible. I do want to thank Senator McGuire for allowing us to speak in front of you here today. I think we have some valuable information to share, and our goal is always open and transparent communication to the best of our ability. As was highlighted by both the director and the administrator, over 50% complete across 4 counties, 1 million tons moved. That is no small feat, and really it takes a whole of community effort, and we couldn't do it without you. Specifically in Sonoma County alone, over 1,800 properties have had debris removed, and 777 properties have been returned back to the county. Roughly 45% complete in Sonoma County. Some of the most significant successes are the ability for the students to return back to school on time. In the Cardinal Newman High School, the Reebly Elementary, and the Schaefer Elementary Schools, as well as the completion of the efforts of Old Fire Station number 5, allowing the reconstruction efforts to begin for that fire station. Now, as was highlighted earlier, and as many of you are aware of, there's currently a protest to our contracts that were awarded on 29 December. And I want to provide you some information concerning that process. In accordance with federal contracting regulations, any bidder has the right to protest. Our responsibility is to respond to that protest in the most expeditious manner possible. However, as this process runs its due course, we are committed to developing solutions in concert with our partners to rapidly return to debris removal operations to complete Coffey Park in 2 weeks, and the completion at the end of February and the beginning of March for the remainder of the parcels. As we speak right now, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is currently having a discussion with 2 different contractors to begin execution of debris removal operations as soon as possible. And as was highlighted earlier by Cal OES, the award of the contract to ECC, USACE will provide technical support, and there will be no changes to the program. What that means is the websites remain, the call-in center remains, the quality assurance and the safety program remains. There should be no change to any property owner in how we resolve issues and execute the operation from this point forward. Additionally, asbestos removal by EPA continues, vehicle removal by DMV continues, and ELSO issue resolution is ongoing across all 4 counties. We've heard from many of you that while your debris removal is complete, you may still have concerns, and rightfully so. Rest assured that we are actively engaging with property owners with unresolved issues and concerns. If you have an issue or feel that we've been non-responsive, please, this is where we need your help. If you see something, please say something. Our call center is still standing by to answer your questions and address your concerns. And in accordance with our issue resolution process, the first step is identifying and documenting issues. Then, assessment and follow-up for ultimate resolution. As our operations continue, recovery, rebuilding remains our highest priority, and public safety and health is our foremost concern. We ask that you maintain an increased level of awareness of heavy equipment and trucks moving throughout the area, and please maintain a safe distance for ongoing work. Also, as everybody knows in this room, winter is upon us, and with winter brings rain. During major weather events, we will redirect work from 2 areas that will minimize impact to the environment and allow for safe and deliberate operations to continue. In closing, we're committed as part of a whole of community effort to the rapid restoration across all affected counties. We have a number of Corps people standing by within the room here as well as outside, and they're happy to talk with you one-on-one, and they can provide you with the latest status of your parcel as well as to capture your issues and concerns. Be reassured, we're doing everything in our power to help you move on. And our core motto is building strong, and our team is Sonoma strong. Thank you.
So at this point, I'd like to bring up Rita Miller and Michael Gossman. They're going to give us an update on watershed and protection, the things that they've done, the things that need to be done, and the things that will be done. So it's Rita Miller and Michael Gossman. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today about what's been happening in our watershed. In late October, the Watershed Task Force was formed to support collaboration between the city, county, state, and federal agencies, as well as a number of local environmental nonprofits. The task force has truly enhanced our ability to get things done. First, it's significant to note that close to 10% of our watershed was burned during the fires. Considering the fire's magnitude, the state quickly evaluated the burn areas and developed a report describing threats to life, safety, and property, and what should be done to protect the public and the environment. That state report has guided much of our work. What have we done so far? We've installed controls to filter runoff and protect water quality, and to prevent fire debris from washing into storm drains and downstream to avoid blocking culverts and flooding roadways. Steep slopes were hydromulched to keep soil in place and to encourage regrowth. And nature has assisted too, with a lot of green coming up in the burn areas. To the watershed's huge benefit, the state directed CAL FIRE to come back to the area shortly after the fires ended to help with our watershed work. They were immensely helpful, and we're really grateful for their time in helping the watershed mission. We also found that sections of our storm drain had burned through, creating underground voids, and we replaced those sections immediately. Many ask about how the runoff from burn areas have affected water quality in our streams. We've collected water samples from both storm drains and creeks, and what we found is good. There's really no increase in pollution above what would be expected for rains of that size. However, we will continue our sampling in the future. Many of you may have seen the hazard assessment map that was developed by the state that shows risk levels in burn areas for increased flooding and debris flow. Essentially, burned soil gets hardened and can't absorb as much water. So combined with burned vegetation, these areas tend to have rain runoff more quickly, and that can cause flash flooding. We want to keep the public informed about their increased risks. If people are aware, they have a better chance to stay safe and out of harm's way. So before I turn it over to Mike, here are a few things that you can do. Be informed and pay attention to anything unusual. High creek levels, land slippages. Have a plan ready, and leave your property if it looks like it's becoming unsafe either during or after a rainstorm. Support our mission to protect our creeks. Maintain the erosion controls that will be left on your property after the fire debris removal completion. And during rebuilding, please ask your contractor to reduce the disturbed areas needed for their work to rebuild and install controls where needed. If you need guidance about what to do, please ask. There are many local resources that can help you. So last, personally, I wish you all in your recovery and in the rebuilding process. I appreciate your attention and would like to turn it over to Mike Osmond, the county's Watershed Task Force lead. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rita. I appreciate that. So you've heard about some of the work done to assess hazardous areas and inform the residents, but we really want to reiterate how important it is. If you haven't already, you should sign up for Nixle. You can text your zip code to 888-777, and also sign up for SoCo Alerts at socoalerts.com. And regardless of where you live, whether you're in one of these identified areas of hazard or not, you should always have a plan with 2 evacuation routes, and then share your plan with friends and family outside the area. So aside from the work that we've already done, the best management practices that we talked about to protect our watershed, we wanted to let you know that we're also identifying long-term projects that are going to protect our community and our environment in the long run. We're working with state and local partners to do that. And we're also installing an early warning system. It's made up of 33 rain and stream gauges and some advanced radar technology that we're going to share not only with like National Weather Service and Fire and Emergency Services and many other local agencies. We're also going to have a website that people can go and look at and get real-time data on what's happening in streams and creeks in your area. I think that that's going to improve emergency response and help inform forecasting. Rita and I are going to be in the lobby after this. If you want to have any questions that you want to ask us about the work we've already done or questions about your area, we'll have some maps available where the hazardous areas exist. So thank you very much.
So to move the program along, we are going to now have state and federal finance assistance for recovery and building. I'm sure we're all interested in that. We'll welcome back to the dais here is Director Mark Galaducci, Baum Fitton, as well as we'd like to bring up, have a briefing on long-term temporary housing. And I think we've got everybody on that. So welcome, and I know there's, again, a lot of questions. Make sure you get a card so your questions can be answered after this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Assembly Member. So I wanted to take a few minutes and just kind of run down a number of things that have been taking place in Sacramento and our efforts working with your local representatives and state legislators and members of Congress to address the issue of economic impacts and other kinds of things that are necessary to help rebuild a community after disaster. So we continue to work with all of the state and federal elected officials and our local government folks. As maybe you may or may not know, the governor did release his proposed budget for 2018-19 fiscal year just on last Wednesday. And a lot of that budget speaks to impacts from these disasters. The budget specifically included $23.7 million in general fund to backfill property tax revenue losses that the cities, the counties, and the special districts incurs as a result of the 17-18 and 18-19 wildfires. So the first thing is doing that backfill on property loss, because as the homes that burn down, they go off the tax rolls, and that is a major fiscal impact to the communities. And then as more information becomes available from the county assessor as time goes on, funding estimates will be adjusted, and then the state will revisit this in the May budget revision and adjust accordingly. During the May revision, that adjustment will include backfilling of any tax revenue losses as well in the Southern California fires. So we're trying to address the whole of the state together. With respect to schools, the wildfire-related property tax revenue losses incurred by schools specifically will be addressed in with Prop 98 school funding, and that is that the governor ensured that money was placed into through Prop 98 and school funding to adjust and help school districts that have suffered losses, and that again that is to ensure that our schools remain resilient through these fires. The budget estimates the budget did estimate that area schools will incur roughly $24.5 million in cumulative property tax revenue losses in 2017 and 18 and 18 and 19 due to these fires. So it is a significant amount for our school districts here, and so that was one of the more key things that the governor wanted to focus in on. And as has already been mentioned, not just FEMA providing 100% for the response costs to address our public safety agencies, police, fire, EMS, emergency management, to ensure that they remain resilient and whole. But through the public assistance programs by FEMA is to be able to help to build back the losses of the fire station and any schools that burned down as well to help those recover. In addition, this past week, I did receive a letter, as well as the governor, from your local elected leaders outlining various fiscal and policy requests. And this was a letter that was co-signed by the counties of Lake, Mendocino, Napa, and Sonoma. And they came up with some really phenomenal ideas and great suggestions that we are already working on. These requests were a result of all of them meeting together in this task force roundtable. Again, one team, one fight effort. And there was, I want you to know that we have already, some of the things we've already addressed, even before we got the letter, because we had been meeting with them. But there are a number of requests that we will work closely with our legislators to be able to address any legislative issues, our Department of Finance, and our other administration officials to address what we can administratively. We're also working with our federal partners on the third supplemental disaster appropriation bill. It's H.R. 4776 on a $4.4 billion request for California to support the overall state's disaster recovery from the wildfires. Let me just say that not since really 1993 have we been able to get all of the California congressional delegation, Republicans and Democrats alike, to sign on together in an effort to address the need for this supplemental. And in the way that politics are today, everybody coming together is a testament of the fact that everybody gets it and everybody's doing what they need to do to get this done. And this funding would be really directed specifically to help both federal and then ultimately state and local agencies like FEMA and Housing and Community Development and Department of Agriculture, the Small Business Administration, and others be able to provide the funds down to the local areas that are necessary to meet the need. I want to specifically thank and highlight the tremendous effort by Congressmen Thompson and Huffman and their leadership in the House. Fantastic. Their work on this was phenomenal and was really an effort to get this bipartisan effort pushed through. The House passed that disaster funding bill last month, and it now is in the Senate, and it is our hope that the Senate can get that thing passed here within the next few weeks. So that's kind of where we're at on the state funding, the resiliency, what we're doing to ensure that the community rebounds. Let me turn it back over to Bob on some of the federal programs.
Thanks, Mark. I'm just going to quickly go through, because I want to get to your questions, some of the federal programs, and maybe it'll help you if you focus your question. But in all, when we look at the estimate for these fires, we look at, at least from FEMA's perspective, we'll probably be providing over $2 billion in assistance. And I talked about some of the programs earlier, but really they come into three main categories. Our public assistance program is going to pay for the reimbursement of damaged public infrastructure, the firefighting costs I talked about earlier, and the debris removal that's happening right now that we talked about. So we will pay for those costs in those areas. Some are cost shared at 100%, 90%, 75%, depending on which category, but that's between us and local or state government is how that works. Basically, I could pay for things damaged or destroyed by the fire, but there's some things that I can't pay for. What I can't pay for is lost revenue. So I have to pay for things that are directly damaged or destroyed by the event. And I can't supplement what insurance provides. It means I can't duplicate another authority. So if insurance is out there or there's some other federal agency that has funding, that needs to take place first. So using that, we will work with the state and local governments to make sure that we provide all the funding we can to them in public assistance. As far as individual assistance, assistance to you all that have been lost or damaged homes. There's a number of programs, not only in FEMA, but other federal agencies that assist you. So many of you registered for assistance following the fires. About 6,000 of you were eligible for some type of assistance. Provided a little bit, almost $15 million just for, to help you rent something in the interim or to provide some type of minimal repairs. In addition to that, many of you that needed somewhere to stay, we've put you in hotels through our transitional sheltering assistance program. Even though that program is authorized by time periods, as some of you may be concerned that are in the transitional sheltering assistance program, that the timeline ends February 2nd. What I do is we do case management when it comes to our individual assistance program. So if you're in one of our programs where we have you in a hotel, or we're directly paying a lease for you, or we're providing you rental assistance, or some type of direct housing assistance where you're in a travel trailer mobile home that we've put up for you, then what we will do is continue to work with you and determine what your needs are. And so with regard to the Transition Sheltering Assistance Program, we will request an extension of that program and work through the individuals there. In some cases, some of those individuals will be able to stay in that program and continue on that program, and some of those will move to other programs, because remember, as I said, that I can't duplicate assistance. So if you have insurance and you got assistance through insurance to rent something, you should go do that. Additional living expense, or if we're giving you rental assistance, we want to get you out doing that. And again, we will work with you, and we have case managers that will work with you and help you do that. In addition to that, direct housing, as I said, there's a number of individuals. I think we've housed over 350 people in some type of direct housing, where whether we leased a unit for you or put you in a travel trailer or a mobile home. I'll have my team talk about that in a little bit more, more specifics here in a second. In addition to that, there's other avenues to, like SBA, who's here and can answer questions. Over 1,000 loans, over $130 million through SBA to individuals and businesses. And they're here and will be here to continue to help you in that respect. In addition to our individual assistance program, the third program that we have is called hazard mitigation. And one of the things we want to do is work with your communities, and as we start talking about long-term recovery and rebuilding, is make sure that we make things more resilient and make sure that we build back Sonoma stronger, as we've talked about. And one of the things that we do is we take 20% of the funding we provide and we set it aside for those type of projects. So whether those are specific infrastructure upgrades or green space or those kind of things, we look at those and provide funding for those types of projects. So with that, let me just turn it over to my team to talk about long-term housing and direct housing, just in case you have specific questions and you're in that area, and we'll help you capture those questions. Go ahead. Sorry, Ryan Burris. Couple minutes.
Good morning, everyone. First off, I want to thank everybody here. Like Bob said, I've been around the agency for a while too, worked many disasters, including Katrina, and I've never had more support from a local county official perspective, so thanks to Sonoma. One thing on the direct housing, there's several programs what Bob just mentioned. One of them is direct lease. It's where we actually go lease in a corporate type apartment. We lease that and we house eligible survivors in those units. The other option that we house, and we have over 60 residents in Sonoma County in those types of units. Direct housing, as far as the units go, mobile homes or travel trailers, we can put those on your private site. We have currently 16 requests. Private sites can take a little longer just because we have to remove the debris and do site inspections to see if it can fit the unit, and then we will install a unit. It could be a mobile home and or a travel trailer for those. We're also working closely with the Sonoma County Fairgrounds. They've been great to work with. We have over 100 survivors housed there. We are actually expanding the Sonoma County Fairgrounds right now. That work should be done in March to house additional units, and when we leave, that infrastructure will stay for the county to use in the future. And that's what we have currently for direct housing. We have people, we have 5 or 6 FEMA staff in the back. If you want to talk about your individual cases, I encourage everyone to go talk to them. They're in the back corner by the pool. That's what I was heard. That's where they are. And also we have teams embedded here. Christine is actually here with her daughter. She's embedded with the local housing task force on a daily basis. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Troy to talk long-term housing.
Good morning. I'm Robert Troy, also with FEMA Region 9. I work for Administrator Bob Fenton. When this disaster happened, Administrator Fenton brought in FEMA staff from all over the country out here to support the response to this disaster. Every regional asset is out in the field working this, so we're either embedded out in the field or with Director Gillarducci's staff in their offices or in the county and city offices with staff there to provide short-term and immediate response and all the resources that are available. But we're also dedicated to being here for the long term. And so my job is to work with our state partners at Cal OES, to work with all of the other state and federal agencies that have a role in recovery to make sure that we're spending tax dollars as effectively as possible. We want to rebuild as quickly as possible. We know that is a priority for local communities, but we also want to rebuild as intelligently as possible. And so to help do that, we have a strong partnership with Cal OES and on the federal level with HUD and then on the state level, Housing and Community Development, to make sure that we're spending all of the federal and state resources and utilizing them as effectively as possible so that we can bring those different funding sources and technical expertise together to rebuild the communities that you need. And we can't do that without your input. So thank you very much for being here this morning. We need local input to your local government so that state and federal partners can support you. And we have that with Sonoma and Mendocino counties and the city of Santa Rosa. Without that strong partnership, we're all operating in the dark, but everybody is here today. It's a great testament to the partnerships that are here to make sure that we're spending your tax dollars as wisely as possible so that in the years to come, and we'll be here for years, that we're rebuilding the communities that are going to be stronger and more resilient in the future. So thank you.
So you may have seen in the newspaper last week that the first burned house is under reconstruction in Coffey Park. This week, if you drove down Kerry Lane, you'd see the walls are framed out on that house. It's a tangible indication that recovery is underway. Now we have to help replicate that about 3,000 times in Santa Rosa and another couple thousand times outside of the city limits in the county area. So to talk about how the city and county are going to help all of you do that, I want to introduce the people who are in charge of permitting, planning, and building in the city and the county. David Guin is Santa Rosa's Assistant City Manager and Director of Planning and Economic Development, and Tennis Wick is the Sonoma County Director of Permit and Resource Management.
Thank you and good morning. And as the mayor said, and as you've heard before, I'm going to make it very clear that on behalf of Tennis, myself, the city, the county, and our permitting agencies, we're committed to helping rebuild Santa Rosa as quickly, as efficiently as possible, and the rest of the county. The Board of Supervisors and the City Council have taken immediate action and put in place policies and resources to help get us there. You're going to hear a little bit about that in terms of the permit centers that we've opened up, the resources and the policies we put in place to help ease the process and expedite the process for you in your rebuild. There's slight differences between the city and county process, so when you come to rebuild, making sure you understand if you're in the city limits or you're in the county, that's the first step. But with that in mind, and we'll go into more specifics about where they differ, but there are a lot of similarities between the city and county and what we're doing and how we're helping to ease the process. The first is that we both have a dedicated permit center, and we're working on setting up a dedicated permit center in both locations. A counter directly for fire response, so you'll have consistent information, expedited review, and dedicated service as you move through the process. We're establishing time-certain permit turnaround times to make sure your plans are turned around in a timely manner. We're streamlining the process, and both organizations have put into effect emergency ordinances that allow us to streamline the process look at certain policies to make sure that we can move them through quicker, allow temporary housing and temporary units on properties that were damaged, temporary connections of utility, electrical, water connections to make sure that you can get up and operational and help with the rebuild. All those are in place, and we have information about all those. In addition, we're also both encouraging second units during the rebuild. So as people are looking to rebuild, if you want to put a second unit on your property or a junior unit, we're going to help facilitate that process. And we both put in place ordinances that allow that to happen and also reduce the fees on those for the smaller units. In addition, we're looking to work with customers and developers and builders to add energy efficiencies into these new developments. So we want to help enhance these homes. We want to do that in a way that's not going to increase the cost and not delay the rebuild, but we want to make sure we add those in as soon as we can. So we'll be reaching out to the development community, reaching out to you, identifying resources that we can bring to the table and help upgrade these homes so they're energy efficiency and provide a lower long-term cost to you as a homeowner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tennis to talk about what the general process is for rebuild, what you're going to see as you come into our offices to submitting a permit to getting into your home, and then we'll talk a little bit about specifics about our two departments.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everybody. David and I get a lot of questions from people as they're going through the rebuild process about what kind of design professional to start with. Do you start with a general contractor or architect or an engineer? It really depends upon your resources and the circumstances on your property. So we'll be offering contacts to the different local organizations that represent engineers, architects, and contractors on the Sonoma County Recovers website. And of course, we'll continue to take those questions and offer our best advice on where you should start. As you all know, there have been a number of communities that where subdivisions have been completely or substantially destroyed. And we are working especially with the Tubbs fire, with a organization of block captains that meets every Wednesday morning at 7:30 at Cafe Mocha out by the airport. And we found it a really good way to constantly update and send information to specific communities. We'll be expanding that process to Sonoma Valley in cooperation with Supervisor Gore's office. So we'll have a weekly local place for you to go and collect information. David, back to you for specifics on the Permit Center.
Great. So the City of Santa Rosa opened our Resilient City Permit Center about a month ago. Since then, we've seen over 600 people come through that permit center to ask questions, get information about the rebuild. We've had over 800 calls over the past couple weeks, so people are interested in asking us good questions. Those questions are being converted into materials that we're populating on our website. If you go to sonomacountyrecovers.org, you can get to both the city and the county's specific building websites. On there, there's a lot of information, and it's updated on a regular basis. So please take a look at those websites. In addition, we have hard copies. We have folders, FAQs, submittal checklist, everything you need to know on what to do to submit a plan. These are available outside, and we'll be able to answer questions more specifically as well. Our permit center is at City Hall, and it's in room 6. It's open from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And as the mayor mentioned, we have one home that's currently under construction. And I'm pleased to announce that last night we issued our 4th permit out the door. So things are moving through, and we're starting to see some action. So. We have had some questions that have come up, some FAQs, and we can talk more about that during the question time. But one of the questions that have come up in terms of landscaping, do we have to have landscaping plans? The city is taking a creative approach to landscaping to develop pre-approved irrigation and landscaping plans that people can use off the shelf to help reduce the time and review time that you can use on your project. So keep an eye open for that. The other question that comes up is building code. We are requiring that everyone is building to the current building code standards, and we can talk more about that out there, or if you have additional questions, we'd be happy to answer those. And then the checklist, I think that's the most important thing. If you are in the city of Santa Rosa and also with the county, look for the checklist of submittal requirements, because the more complete you submit your plans, the quicker it'll turn around and we can get you out the door with an approved set of plans. So with that, I'll turn it back to Tennis on the county's permit.
Right, so the County Resiliency Permit Center will be open by mid-February or sooner. We're taking a negotiated contract to the board on 29 January at 8:30, if you want to attend for that. We've negotiated substantially reduced fees. We have, which will be publicized soon. I would assume the first part of next week. We'll have guaranteed turnaround times, just as David mentioned, in the city of 5 days or sooner, 3 days on rechecks, and an aggressive green line or red line process to minimize the number of rechecks that are necessary. We want to get those through the process as quickly and as cheaply as possible. For those of you who don't want to wait for that, and so we have had customers who've been submitting plans for rebuild, you can come in now and there's expedited review. We have issued permits for reconstruction that's happening now in the burn zone, and have a number of properties that are just waiting for debris removal clearance from the environmental health officer, and they'll be able to move forward. I want to make clear for the people who have submitted applications under the existing fee schedule, which is more expensive than what will be happening in the permit center, that we will be sending information out to you for refund. So I can't imagine people won't want to do that. We'll be identifying the difference between the two fees and letting you know. We will probably have to get your permission to do it, but I can imagine, again, people will want it to process those refunds to you. So that process, again, there'll be more information out the first part of this next week on all the details related to that center. Shall we transition now to question and answer?
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if it works for everyone, what we'd like to be able to do is we have several questions for the county and the city, the Army Corps, the Office of Emergency Services, FEMA, the Insurance Commissioner's Office. So what we'd like to be able to do is we're going to be repeating the questions that have been asked via the cards, and we're going to go into a bit of a lightning round worth of questions and answers. With a reminder, we have over 50 staff from the Army Corps of Engineers, Office of Emergency Services and FEMA, City of Santa Rosa and the County of Sonoma, the Department of Insurance outside. They are going to be hanging out for the next 45 minutes to an hour after this town hall concludes to be able to answer any specific questions that you may have about your own personal property or your rebuilding project. So without further ado, if it's okay with everybody, we're going to turn it over to Tennis Wick, David Gouen, to be able to answer questions in regards to the County of Sonoma building and City of Santa Rosa building departments.
Thank you, Senator. So, Dave, I'll read the question and then offer the answer. Will the city and county allow people to rebuild wood-burning fireplaces? So, as Dave mentioned, we're rebuilding to current code, and current code in the South County, that's subject to the air quality district regulations there, bans fireplaces. In the North County, fireplaces are permitted, but the newer EPA style that burn wood pellets or other similar products. So if you have any specific questions about which district you're in, see our folks in the back after the meeting. Is there anything that can be done to expedite building for the elderly beyond negotiating with a builder? Again, I would just repeat that we'll work with you to identify design professionals and where you can go and contractors to get the people you need for your particular circumstance. But as I mentioned, we're going to have expedited review, reduced permit fees, the ability to apply for the board to the board for waivers. So I think those are the major steps that would be able to help the elderly. Okay. Once plans are submitted to PRMD, how long will it take to complete permitting? Again, 5 business days, 3 days for rechecks, and a redlining process that will minimize that to the minimum necessary. FEMA recommends we rebuild our homes in fire areas that are fire resistant. Should our community require homes in the fire to be built to resist fire? Well, again, we're requiring people to build to the current building code. Especially in the county, there were a number of older homes. So just building to the current code will include a number of fire resistive measures. So I don't think there's a specific need for you to worry about that particular and important design detail. Here, you read. Okay. Can we use the building plans already on file with the county building department, or do we have to redraw them? What happens to waive the permit? So we've gone over the permit fees. As far as plans, well, I mean, literally thousands of you have been in to see us since the fire and try to recover as many of your records as possible. Most of those are on microfilm, so they'll provide you with guidance to rebuilding. The other place you can go is the county assessor's office, and I see Mr. Rousseau here this morning. Morning, Bill. And his office has been great for going to people. They have information through their field notes that may not be in the permit center, either because the work didn't get a permit or it just predated permit requirements. So that's another really important resource that we would strongly recommend. My property was left with a big hole in the middle that's turning into a lake. Should I be worried? Yes. It's always good to get reassurance. How do we get the dirt? Oh, it's a hole in the property. How do we get the dirt back, and where does it need to be for rebuilding? That's a question unless it's a really big hole, you're probably not going to need a grading permit. 50 cubic yards in the county is the threshold. But that's probably one that's better for us to answer specifically in the back. Hopefully not a lot of people are facing that problem. Can the county and the city of Santa Rosa provide homeowners a list of required building code upgrades based on construction date of their home? Yes. Those are available on the city website now and will be available the first part of next week on the county's website. Yes, Senator. Can the county, and he's still my boss one way or the other, county and city engineering specs, are they different? Really, no. We're building to the same building code. And you should, if you're a county or a city, you should go to the specific agency if you have really specific questions, and again, we'll be in the back.
So the question about tree removal. So we have a lot of tree removal questions in here. The city does have a tree removal permit process. We understand that a lot of trees were damaged during the fire and need to come down. We are identifying an expedited process for that. We're encouraging people to take pictures of those trees, bring them in, and we have an over-the-counter process to make sure that that's done quickly and efficiently and not requiring a full arborist report. I think that's a question that has come up multiple times. Again, we'll be back there at the end if I didn't quite get to any of these specifically. Is the city going to resurvey the plots, or are we on their own? So the city is not planning to resurvey all the plots. We do know there are some organizations and people that are grouping together to do surveying all together at one time of certain sections. Also, there's certain developers out there that are looking to do master plan type development, so bringing on between 20 to 100 units at a time. They will probably bring in their own surveyors to survey the area as well. So we're looking at different approaches to that, and we'll facilitate any approach that people want to do to move that forward. Is the city committed to waiving or keeping permit fees to a minimum? Yes, we have reduced and eliminated a lot of the fees in terms of the rebuilds, all the impact fees. Those don't need to be paid again. Any discretionary fees such as planning or hillside development or debris removal, all those fees have been waived. The only fees that we are collecting are just the plan check and inspection fees, which total to about $5,000 for a lot. So that's pretty much it at the city. How can you the geotech report, a question has come up about geotech report in terms of what's needed. Our position has been that if you don't expand the footprint of your house by a certain amount, then you don't have to provide a geotech report. You could rebuild on that lot. So again, it's going to depend on your specific layout, and if you're moving your home or expanding a certain percentage, that will help us understand what we need to require to make sure it's safe, and we address the liquefaction areas, specifically in the city of Santa Rosa. So please come talk to us, and we'll help you through that process. Is there a check-off list that details the step to the rebuild? Yes, we have it, and it's published now. Again, we have hard copies in the back. It's online. You can pick those up, and it walks you through the process of everything that you need to have during the rebuild process. A large redwood tree on the property to be removed. Again, the tree removal process, that would follow the same process as I mentioned before. And we'll put that in, that's a question that we've got a lot of, so we're going to put that on our FAQ on the website quickly after this, so everyone has access to the latest information. Coffee Park, will the whole neighborhood be graded before building can begin? The debris removal process is leaving finished dirt lots. Each developer will come in and grade it depending on how you want to develop that lot. So there won't be one massive grading. Each lot will be specific based on the design and build that you want on your property. Is the rebuild in Coffee Park going to follow the Wildland Urban Interface Code as established in the rest of Santa Rosa? The Wildland Urban Interface is a defined boundary primarily in the Fountain Grove area that adds additional fire requirements on the rebuild, such as siding, roof material, vents. That is a defined boundary that's in the Fountain Grove area. It does not cover the Coffee Park area at this time. Okay. Will the rebuilt homes require sprinklers? Yes. The sprinklers are required as part of the new building code. What we are doing is looking at ways to reduce the cost of adding the sprinklers. One big change that we've made in the city is that you do not have to upsize, and we've worked with the fire department on this, the service from the main to the meter. That's typically the most expensive part because you have to dig in the street. What we are also doing is where we've instituted automatic meter reading, which is specifically Coffee Park, we're allowing inline backflow flow valves that are underground, they're not above ground, and they don't have to be inspected every year. You put them in and replace them every 10 years, so it reduces the cost, the ongoing maintenance, and is a lot more efficient for sprinkler systems. And we're also working with developers to encourage recirculation of the sprinkler systems and other things to help with water quality and make it easier for the homeowner during the rebuild. The cement between the street and the sidewalk was crushed during debris removal. Who's responsible? This is a question we get a lot of the times in terms of during construction, during debris removal, during the fire. Please document before anything happens, before your developer starts working on your property. We need to know what was damaged before and after. We'll work with the Corps of Engineers if there was something that was damaged during the debris removal, and we'll look at site specific. Again, document during construction. Again, your contractor will be responsible for fixing. Other than that, we're going to not require the homeowners to replace their sidewalk in front of their home like we typically would do on a new development, understanding that that's a big burden to people to get back into their homes as quickly as possible. So please document, and we'll work with you on a site-specific basis. I think that was it. Oh, yep. Well, we'll be back here at the tables with any additional questions. We'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we're going to be talking insurance. Dave Jones, the State of California Insurance Commissioner. I believe he's down in Southern California. We've got a lot of stuff going on in our state right now, but we've got a Deputy Commissioner, Joel Loucher. He's a Deputy Insurance Commissioner. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. I hope many of you were able to attend our claims workshop that we held in December, and I hope you found that helpful. If you take a look at your agenda, you'll find that the department was a very late addition to the agenda, so it's just me here. We won't have people in the lobby after. So I do want to tell you, you can go to insurance.ca.gov. That is where you can do a request for assistance, and our consumer services people, most of whom who have claims backgrounds, are there to help you We very much encourage you to contact us. You can also call 1-800-927-4357. So please take advantage of our free services in helping you with your claims issues or underwriting issues. We really want to help. That's what we're here to do. I'm going to answer a couple questions. Yes, certainly. It's 1-800-927-4357. So insurance, which I know you all know how to spell now, .ca.gov. Insurance.ca.gov. All right, and I'm sorry for speaking quickly. We're trying to get through as many of your questions as we can. The first question I was presented is a question about the percentages that insurers are paying out without doing an inventory, asking if the department is going to make public that information. I think our intention is to make that public. I'm not sure of the degree of specificity, to be honest, and I have to say this about personal property limits. They vary from insurer to insurer. So some insurers offer 50% of your dwelling limit for contents, some offer more. And that means that when one insurer offers 75% of your limit and another offers 100%, they may be rough equivalents. And I'm not here to represent the industry. I'm just trying to tell you kind of the facts of how the policies operate. From what we've heard thus far, not many carriers are going to be offering 100%. Most are at something less than that. And again, their limits vary. The contract is based on paying the actual cash value up front and then the replacement cost once replaced. We don't have the authority to make them do otherwise. It's not in statute. So whatever they're doing at this point is voluntary. And we are certainly trying to contact them to get them to up their game. I had a second question about that. Somebody said that their insurer hasn't done any allowance to, it still is requiring line item itemization of each and every item without giving some percentage at all. What I'm going to suggest you do, maybe to get another one of these question cards, write down the name of your insurer and give that to me. And we will certainly contact that insurer, as we are reaching out to many of them specifically to ask if they will willingly allow to pay at least some percentage without the inventory. So we are pushing insurers to do it, but as I said, we can't require them. Again, next question is, we have a 2-year limit to make claim to additional living expense and replacement cost on contents, and what happens at the end of that time. Again, the laws as they're currently written don't necessarily push limits out for all of these coverages beyond that 2-year period. Unfortunately, events like this kind of expose weaknesses in these laws. We're hopeful that we'll be able to take action with some of your legislators here who have been working with us to propose some fixes. But at this point, most of this takes place through negotiations with your insurers. I think most insurers are going to be willing to extend time to pay. There's a clear realization that a lot of the rebuilding is not going to be done in 2 years. So again, if you're having issues, please contact the department. I don't see that there's just going to be this bright line with the marketplace cutting off your coverages. Okay? All right, actually, the last question is about the same thing, the additional living expense time frame running out. You know, of course, the key here, the amount of your living expense doesn't change even though after a disaster you get an extended time. We hope everybody's managing those dollars the best they can to make it last the 2 years. Again, this is a discussion with your insurer. If you want to push them to do something beyond what they're obligated to do, but please contact the department. Maybe we can help you in that negotiation if your insurer is unwilling to extend the time frame. So please, we're there to help you. Contact us, and we'd love to help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now we're going to bring back up Colonel Eric McFadden from the Army Corps of Engineers to help address some of the questions we've had on debris removal. Colonel? Thank you.
So first of all, I brought 20 subject matter experts with me today. They're all outside. They've arrayed themselves by neighborhood and focus area. And so many of these questions are specific questions about specific parcels. So what I would ask as I go through here, ask that you engage them individually so they can provide you the right level of attention in addressing your concern. I think it's extremely important that we address it at the individual level in some cases to give you the specificity that you desire. I will try to read these as fast as possible as I have a rather large stack. And so in Coffey Park, we have located existing piers so the new ones can be properly located in the new building design. And searching for the piers, we have run into concrete that was buried by the Corps. Can they pick it up? I would say, please, whose ever property this is, have the issue documented outside so we can capture that and address the specific concerns on that site. Will the trees on our property felled due to fire damage be removed by Army Corps of Engineers? So the question is whether or not it was inside the ash footprint. If it's inside the ash footprint, yes. If it's outside, then generally no. Other things you may see on site is the contractor does need access to or be able to remove the debris in the ash footprint, so some pruning or limb removal may occur, but that is purely to gain access to the site to remove the debris. Bottom line to this question is, when will petrified forest area be included in the debris removal plan? We did a significant strategy session last night, given the fact that Cal OES has contracted with ECC, and we are currently in conversation with 2 other contractors. Petrified forest is included in the debris removal plan and will be addressed within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I have real concerns about debris removal. How do we know it's being done properly, soil samples, etc.? I have observed and asked many questions. I know there are many mistakes being made, and we have no recourse under our ROE agreement. What I would ask is that the individual who owns this property, please bring this up as an individual issue so we can address individual concerns. We do spend a lot of time and effort in training our quality assurance representatives to ensure that the contractor is executing the contract in a technical manner that's actually technically accurate in accordance with the contract, as well as safe and secure as we conduct these debris removal. Talked about that. Debris removal was completed on my property, but FEMA USACE left a large crevice and fence in it. When will they pull it out and remaining wall? Will FEMA USACE regrade and fill in hole? When? I would like to sell land. And I would ask, please address your individual concern outside. We can capture it, and we can take a look at the existing site conditions and make an assessment on how to move forward. When will the burnt vehicles be taken away? Insurance companies say FEMA isn't allowing them to remove. Vehicles are being removed as we speak, and that's a great partnership with the Department of Motor Vehicles. And thank you to their hard efforts. That has actually helped us to speed up the process. Okay. Who is supervising hired debris removal contractors? That's part of our mission. We provide quality assurance as well as safety oversight, and we work directly with their quality control measures put in place by the contractor. Individual in Mark West Creek, question about bridge access. Please ask or have us address the specific parcel location outside. And similarly, with the county having 100% access to home sites, if not, will that be delayed cleanup? So again, please address that individual parcel concern outside. How does the Army Corps of Contractors decide which property is cleared and priority of that property? The priorities were set to us, provided to us from the county to the state to us, and we've been executing debris removal operations in accordance with those priorities. And from this point forward, we will continue forward with those priorities, number one being Coffee Park, and continue to move forward. I talked about ash footprint, timeline for completion. The specific parcel questions about timeline for completion can be addressed outside. My property was cleared December 10th. We still do not have erosion control grass. Again, please have this issue documented, and we'll address it as soon as possible. Has FEMA and the debris program done any testing of the foundations? Would the debris program be able to save foundations that are sound? Again, specific questions, and please have it documented outside, and we can address specific concerns about foundation removal. Thank you.
Folks, I know it's been a long time. We've been in here a while. Can we have it toned down a little quieter in the back so people can hear? We've had complaints that they can't hear over the crowd noise, so please. At this point in time, we're going to go to the City of Santa Rosa to answer a question about Journeys Inn Mobile Home Park. And then Bob from FEMA is going to be back up to answer questions related to FEMA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We had quite a few questions about Journeys Inn Mobile Home Park. That part was partially destroyed. There were some homes that remained. There's questions about getting access back to those sites. So two things. One, it's a private property. We are in contact with the owner about access to that park. Two, the utilities, I think, were destroyed during the fire. So we're looking at that to see what it's going to take to get those repaired. Three, it's on the cleanup list to be cleaned up by FEMA in terms of the debris cleanup, and so that will be happening. If people are having troubles finding a place to stay, or they don't have a place to stay and they were residents of Journeys Inn, please contact FEMA. FEMA's outside in the front, out by the front doors. And we will work with you to try to identify that solution. But the city is committed to making sure we're in communication with the owner, to talk to the mayor. That we will set up a meeting, a Journeys Inn public meeting, to have a deeper conversation into this, to figure out what the future is and how we can help facilitate that moving forward. Do you want to talk to us?
I think you hit all the points. Private owner, they'll make a determination. In the meantime, we will have the Corps remove the debris from Journeys Inn, and we'll continue to work with them. We also have brought HUD into the discussions to talk to them and other agencies to see what we can do there. But at this point, if those going out can keep quiet on the way out, I'd appreciate it for the rest that are in here. So what I was saying is, the gentleman from the county basically spoke to it. We'll remove the debris, but it's privately owned, and we'll continue to talk to the owner, see if there's things we can do, but it's really up to the private owner of the facility to make a decision on what he does next. In the interim, I do have people outside to the right of the door when you go out there that if you temporarily need assistance, we could help you. And if you're already registered in the program, we will continue to support you in those endeavors. I got a bunch of questions here, and I'm just going to go through my questions. There's a question I got here from an individual that applied for assistance, has 2 kids, elderly mother, and it looks like maybe her husband had applied too. There might have been some confusion of multiple applications, and so that compounded or confused our registration department with providing assistance to that individual. What I would do for whoever that is you go out the door, we have people there that will work your case. She thinks that her case has been deleted out of the system. If that's the case, we'll work with you on that and get your information and work with you individually on that. There are a number of questions I got with regard to other individuals that had questions specifically about their case. And rather than me trying to answer your questions about your case and not having your file in front of me, the best thing you do is go to someone that has your case right out front, and they'll pull your case up or take your name and number and then pull your case up and talk to you individually about your situation. But we want to resolve those, and that's why we brought individuals here with case information today to resolve those individually. For those that, as I talked about earlier, that are in our transitional sheltering assistance program, they're currently in a hotel where the program needs to be renewed after February 1st. We will work with you individually. We'll be contacting you if you're in that program. Again, if you have ALE through insurance or we've given you rental assistance funding, we want you to go ahead and use that funding to go ahead and rent something in the interim, and eventually we will work with you to move you out of the transition sheltering program and use the resources that we provide you for renting. That's the intent of the sheltering program, is an interim program to get you into a longer term rental. So we will be working with you individually to do that. For those that don't have ALE through their insurance, or those that don't have, haven't received rental assistance through FEMA, we may continue to provide you assistance through our transition sheltering program, as we're requesting to extend it for another 30 days for those that will still need it. Okay? Yep. Two more questions here that I got. One is about our FEMA resources able to replant trees. And unfortunately, no, we don't replant trees in our public assistance program. However, we will help with watershed and the hydro seeding and all those kind of things that have been done. We'll reimburse for those costs, but we don't replant trees. What we will do, though, is if there are trees that are threats to public health and safety, widowmakers, we will pay to take those down, but we don't replant trees. Last question I got is there appears to be a dispute between the union and FEMA and the cleanup effort. Now there's a work stoppage, which, as you heard earlier, really not. Why hasn't FEMA included budget to cover union wages and health? So a little complicated, but the federal government uses a Service Act. The Service Act has set rates between the Department of Labor. Obviously, when there's bids for contracts, vendors bid on those rates. My understanding is that all rates so far underneath our contracts have been paid to California prevailing wage. I haven't seen where that hasn't been the case yet, but we'll continue to monitor that and make sure that that's the case. All right? That's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, Mr. Fenton. We're going to bring up now Supervisor James Gore, Chief Gosner, and Paul Lowenthal to answer some questions related specifically around Sonoma County policy and fire-related questions. So please, gentlemen, come on up.
Thank you very much, Jim. Assemblymember Wood. I'm going to hammer through a couple county questions real quickly right now and then pass it over here. So the first thing is it says, what steps are being taken to ensure the local workforce is prepared for the rebuild effort, and what efforts are being made to use this disaster as an opportunity to grow the local economy? Very quickly, I think we all have to realize that there's a huge amount of money that's coming in different ways to the county. As much as there's a hit to property taxes in other areas, the insurance claims, the billions of dollars that we talk about in damages that come back in that. We've already seen that happen in terms of debris removal. If you look around, the operating engineers, the Engineering Contractors Association, both private companies, unionized and non-unionized, have really deployed. They've gotten hundreds of people certified for hazmat for the debris removal process. That is exactly the kind of work we want to see, is where people are earning good wages that they're going to spend back in their community, local hire. We're trying to do the same thing to ensure that that's what's going to happen going forward when we get into contracting. But the reality is that we do have workforce shortages in those areas here in the county. And so there will be people from out of town coming here to work. Why? Is because if you depended only on your local workforce, you might be delayed years to be able to get back to a point where you can rebuild. Second thing, why was the permit fee for the county waiver passed on October 10th, rescinded on November 7th? So we passed it 2 days into the fire as an absolute, let's go and do this. We talked with Mr. Fenton and FEMA, and they said, we want to let you know that was great, that's what you did, but you need to look at this because we are not allowed to recuperate lost revenue for that. So what we did is we said, okay, well, that being the case, that this could be a $20 or a $30 million hit to the county, which means you and your services and how we can provide stuff. It's not like that money is sitting in other categories. We said, okay, we need to look at this more long-term. And so what you've seen is us coming back, number one, with this flat fee reduced, expedited, but then also we're going to look at hardship waivers, which is another thing that we talked about. The goal there is to get things down to the bare minimum because yes, even though your insurance company might provide for you to cover those fees, that could take away from the aggregate of what you get back, right? Which could reduce your ability to rebuild. So the goal is to get that down to the lowest number possible, and we're around that number of in between $5,000 to $6,000 as opposed to 10 to 20 as it might have been before. We're talking about streamlining, but we're also going to be looking at over the coming month what kind of other subsidies and hardship waivers and things could we create. And I'd love you guys to engage as much as possible on that. I have two questions that came up. One that said, why is the city of Santa Rosa's information so much better than the county's? And the other one is, why did the city lag so much behind the county? So the reason I say that is that's a classic example of our need to coordinate, and that's why the Sonoma County Recovers.org website and all of our communications are there and ongoing. If some of you were happy with one jurisdiction and not the other, or vice versa, please let us know where those are at. But that's the goal, is combined partnership, and also, as you see with the permitting offices, to get our fees down to same levels and our return times. Emergency notifications, nixle cover, cell phones versus landlines, future emergency response. I'm as interested in the answers on this as anybody out there. I would have loved to have seen an emergency warning go out to all of you in those areas. The two questions are, would it have caused more damage, more death, and more chaos, or would it allowed everyone to prepare better, get their things taken care of, and get out? We have requested an independent review from the Office of Emergency Services. We are expecting that back in the coming weeks, if not month or so, and we're going to take action deliberately on that. I do want to remind everybody, if you look at what happened this morning, if you look on your phone right now, you'll see that an emergency alert went out to the entire state of Hawaii saying there was a missile coming in, and it was completely false. This is the reason I say that is because the two congressmen hosted a study session yesterday that we went to, and we talked about the wider issue of this. We had in this region more than 70 cell towers that burnt down on that night. Many of the areas were not reachable, many of them were early. There is no eye in the sky methodology like a TV program that says you should do this here. We have in Santa Barbara County both an accusation that people did not leave when they got a mandatory request to leave, and then on the other side, folks who said the mandatory evacuation order didn't come out until too late. This is an ongoing issue. It demands two things. One is us on the front end of figuring out the new world with technology and response, but on the other edge is back to the old world of citizen empowerment, responsibility, local groups organizing around CERT teams and COPE teams, and that's a program that we're going to try and build out this year in terms of resilience for those of you in those areas. That leads into the PG&E question about undergrounding and rollout blackout grids. All that is on the table. Post Oakland Hills fires, undergrounding happened on their utilities. Post San Diego fires, shut down parts of the grid during high wind events. And then the final thing is I have a couple questions on trees. There's a lot of groups working on tree restoration and management and watershed protection. We are funding that. If you have any interest in following up, contact my office, James Gore, Sonoma County Supervisor, 4th District.
Hello, everyone. Tony Gosner. I'm the fire chief here at Santa Rosa. I got 3 questions. I'll be brief. So why is there not a City of Santa Rosa liaison for the fire-related issues that can facilitate questions for organized groups like Coffee Strong? We are absolutely there to help facilitate any conversation. So please reach out to the fire department. We will make sure somebody's there. If we're not asked, we don't know that you need us. So please reach out. If it's not the city, we will help you connect with the fire district or the county and possibly participate even in the conversations as well. So please reach out and we'll do what we can. Second question, what new regulations are being considered to improve prevention of wildfires, fire resistance, homes, and better emergency warning systems? So all of the houses, not all of the houses, most of the houses in Fountain Grove and the Mark West Springs Road from Napa County all the way to Sonoma County fell within the old standards. All those houses now fall into Chapter 7A, which is the Wildland Urban Interface Standards, which means they will be hardened even further, which will help reduce some of that. Part of the prevention is defensible space. That really works in the intermix, which is the Mark West Springs area. As soon as you get into the urban areas, it becomes a density issue with houses. So we are looking at that, but there are current codes on the books now that all those new structures will have to be built with. So it'll be hardened from the outside to resist, and it'll also have sprinklers interior. One note, our new fire station up in Station 5 up on Fountain Grove was hardened, and that did not survive. That's partially because the winds were so great. This event was a wind-driven event that we don't typically see in our area, and that was what caused most of the devastation. The third question, when will we investigate the results of the rest of the cause of the wildfire and be released to the public? Right now, CAL FIRE is in charge of that. I'll remind you there was 9 fires in Sonoma County that started within a 3-hour window, and every one of those fires has an investigative team, and they're looking at everything systematically. So I know that they're working diligently on it, but they don't have a release date. I will remind everyone the Valley Fire, it took 364 days to get any kind of release of investigation. So it's ongoing, and it's going to be a while longer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Paul Lowenthal with the fire department as well. A couple of these are a little bit repetitive, but need some clarification, and got a total of 6 to get through. So a general question about cars again. Ultimately, if you're a private opt-out, the vehicle is your responsibility to have removed through either yourself or through your insurance company. If it is one of the ROE sites, that was part of the process I was talking about earlier. The DMV is facilitating the paperwork process, and eventually it will be removed through the ROE process. What are we doing about burnt trees and brush, both on the property and at the curb? Due to the complexity and the size of this incident and the amount of green waste that's being generated, we have a Sonoma County Debris Task Force that's meeting regularly, Monday through Friday daily, to address this specific topic right now, as well as many others. So we are working on the ability to provide options to people that are left with burnt waste that needs to be chipped or removed. So look for that information on SonomaCountyRecovers.org in the next week to 2. But we are working on a plan with several different agencies as well as private companies to help facilitate that need. Also, there's questions that come up about the brush and the planter strip. That is ultimately the responsibility of the property owner that's immediately adjacent to the property. So in between the curb and the sidewalk, that question comes up a lot, is who's responsible for that, and it is the property owner. There's also questions that are coming up about the tagging of the trees. PG&E has completed about 99% of their tree removal that they're required to do under the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission. However, the trees, once they are fell, are not their own. They do not own the wood. So ultimately, if there's concerns about the wood that was left over from a PG&E operation, you can reach out to PG&E at 1-800-PG&E-5000 to ask about the status of any logs that were dropped on your property. There's also a lot of questions that are coming up about the silver tags. The silver tags are affixed to the trees, and that's a tree removal operation that's taking place by Sonoma County Department of Public Works. That is trees that threaten the current right-of-way right now, so that's what's going on with that. Another tree question about what are we doing to mitigate the hazard with the down trees, specifically those are that were in the creeks. The Santa Rosa and Sonoma County Water Agency, Stormwater and Creeks divisions, they have a watershed task force, much like we have a debris task force. And one of the missions they had CAL FIRE do was remove that brush from the creeks early on to help reduce any threats of flooding. If you do still see areas where there is a significant amount of dead brush or chopped down trees and brush in the creeks that you feel could be a concern, please reach out to either the county or the city's stormwater divisions. Going forward, will Coffee Park be considered part of the potential wildland urban interface area? Coffee Park is not in a wildland urban interface area. Unfortunately, based like Chief was saying earlier, this was a wind-driven event that blew out of the wildland urban interface area through a commercial industrial park and then carried into a high densely populated area. So at this point in time, there is no direction to shift the boundaries of the wildland interface area to include Coffee Park. The house next door to me opted out of the debris removal program. Do they have a deadline to have their property cleared? Currently, with the debris removal process moving forward under the Army Corps of Engineers, both the city and county are currently meeting and hope to set deadlines for debris removal for both residential and commercial. We hope to have those consistent so there's no confusion between city and county, and hope to have a date secured within the next week to 2 weeks. And again, that information will be posted at SonomaCountyRecovers.org. Thank you.
Okay, up next is Supervisor Susan Gorin, who's going to talk about a town hall meeting coming up in the Sonoma Valley. And also following her, Christine Sosko from Environmental Health will talk about some issues related to environmental health in Sonoma County.
I want to thank you all for sticking around. I know this meeting is running long and you still have a lot of questions. If you know me, you understand I'm one of you. I lost a home and I'm navigating insurance and debris cleanup and vegetation management and rebuilding. I also represent a good part of Sonoma Valley that lost a lot of homes, and we will be organizing a similar forum on January 30th in Sonoma. So if you know folks in Sonoma that want to receive similar information, let them know, and we will hit the media. I'm organizing and working with James Gore to organize housing fairs in February and March to help you navigate the rebuilding process, sort of taking this information a step forward about what you should be thinking about during rebuilding. But if there is any silver lining in all of this, it's that neighbors are coming together to learn from each other, to support each other, and to organize on cleanup and rebuilding. I intend to hold some similar meetings for the folks in Mark West, Rincon Valley, Glen Ellen, Kenwood, and if you are working with your neighbors and have self-identified block captains to help us communicate with all of you, please let me know who you are, and James and I will be working with the block captains to help with the information that you desperately need, and so that we understand what information you need. So thank you so much. I'm one of you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Sosko, and I have a couple questions. Most of them are concerning the process. Once you've completed the ROE and your property has been cleared up, kind of what are the next steps? And so what happens is once your property has been cleared, there's a period of time where the soil testing is being done, and so you'll see your property just kind of a little, just sitting idle for a moment while the soil testing is coming out. Once the soil testing has been cleared and approved, then the Army Corps is sending a letter over to the county. The county is then updating the map that is on the Sonoma County Recovers website. It's on the Sonoma County Recovers website under debris removal, and there's an interactive map. If you go there, you will see, as soon as we receive the letter from Army Corps, we will update that map to turn your property from blue to green. And as soon as it's green, that means it's ready for rebuild. There's a robocall that will come out to you, and the number that call is sent to is the one that you provided on your right of entry, and then there's also a letter that will be sent. We understand that the mail service and that, it takes a little longer, so as soon as your property shows as green, the planning building departments are accepting that. So you don't have to have your physical letter to go start your building process. There was also a question about the bill for cleaning the property from Army Corps. And the county will be receiving a final packet from Army Corps on each of your properties. This comes a little bit later. We didn't want to wait for that final bill to come before releasing your properties for rebuild, so that's like the next step. And so when that final survey of your property and everything comes out, that packet will be sent to the county, and that will also include a cost analysis. At that time, the county will be contacting you about the billing and your insurance and that. Yeah. For the, so I guess, so what I'm hearing from you is your question is you were told originally that the right of entry will cover all costs, not even those costs in your. So, okay, so let me clarify that. There is a piece of debris removal that your insurance company will reimburse you. And that is, it's independent on what insurance policy you have. So I'm going to let the insurance commissioner maybe answer that a little more, but there are several different insurance policies. The county is only asking for that piece that you were given insurance reimbursement and then public funds were used for. It's that duplication of funds piece. Yeah.
So what we're going to do, if it works, I'm going to get your phone number. We're going to sit down you right afterwards, I promise you. If you don't mind just hanging out, we're going to come right over to you right after this and then be able to work through the exact question, if that's okay. And I promise you, I'm going to come over there personally as well. So I'll be right there.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So the other two questions I had really were related to health and, about health effects and the debris removal and where is the debris going. The debris, every piece of debris has a certain classification, whether it's concrete, metal, whatever it is, and it has a process that's approved by the state and how that is handled. And so part of what Army Corps' health and safety plan and what environmental health and everybody is looking at for quality assurance is to make sure that all that debris is going to the proper places where it can be properly and thoroughly disposed of. The other question I had was about any updates on, health effects, anything like that. Anytime we learn any new information, gather information, we are updating the Sonoma County Recovers website. So that would be the best place to check if you have any concerns around that or if something new has developed. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for your patience and for hanging with us this entire time on your Saturday morning. I want to take a moment to be able to wrap up and talk with you about some follow-ups. I want to remind you right out in the lobby and in the parking lot, We have nearly a dozen local, state, and federal agencies that are prepared to be able to work with you on any specific questions that you have relating insurance, your property, debris removal, rebuilding. We have everyone that you need here today, right out in the lobby as well as out in the parking lot, and we encourage you to please take some time to be able to talk with them. I also want to take a moment to say thank you to our federal, state, and local agencies and all the representatives who are here today. I think we need to give them a round of applause and say how grateful we are for their continued service to this community. For every town hall, Santa Rosa High School has been our home away from home. They have opened up even in the peak of the firestorm. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to Superintendent Kitamara for her incredible work and support in getting the schools back open and for allowing us to be here again today. If we can give Santa Rosa City Schools a round of applause and for continuing to host us as well. Thank you so much, Santa Rosa City Schools. Also, there is an individual that's not going to be able to get home because you left your keys. So if you are looking for your keys, we got them up here. We're going to give them to Director Garaducci. So, and he has promised, there we go. He just asked what kind of car it is. All right, Hayes, there we go. Now, if they're, we can also, he can take you code 3 back to the house as well. Am I right, Director? Okay, just got awkward. Thank you so much. But we do have your keys up front, and I'm just going to end it right here and say how grateful we are that you're here today. And while there is a lot of work ahead, we have made incredible progress, and we are with you every step of the way. Thank you so much for coming out. We'll be with you here in the months and years to come. Thank you so much. And please check out right outside. Brian Batari is also here from PG&E. If you have any related questions as well, Brian, thank you so much for being here on any items. Thank you so much, PG&E, for your work as well. Thank you.